And now, your Pickle Gals.
Welcome to our podcast. I am Krishan Spackman.
And I'm Rachel Roney.
And we are
the Pickle Gals.
So, first of all, thank you very much for all of the support on our episode 1. It has been fantastic. Keep liking, keep sharing. I know that we were very excited the night before we went live with it with our teaser. We had over 2,000 views or plays within 12 hours of putting it out there.
Yeah, that was really exciting to see.
Oh, it's fantastic. So this is our episode 2, and a quick shout out right away to Friday Pickleball. You'll hear more about them and from them in our ad later. So lots been going on. It seems it's been 2 weeks, but it seems a little longer maybe. I don't know.
I know. We packed a lot of stuff in the last 2 weeks, I think. So, and if you guys didn't see this announcement on our pages or on Krishan's pages online, shout out to Krishan. She was just drafted into the NPL, which is a huge deal. It's essentially the MLP, Major League Pickleball, for 50-plus players. And she was drafted onto Team Coachella Valley Scorpions, which is a very cool name. So congrats on that, Krishan, and share a little bit about that experience.
Well, what she didn't tell you is she likes the Coachella Valley Scorpions because she likes the Coachella Music Festival. And what's your sign?
I'm a Scorpio, so I mean the logo and everything. It's just insta fan for you.
I should have talked to you before. I might have known where I was going to go. Oh yeah, I really, really do appreciate that. I can't say that it's sunk in. It's like you said, it's been a busy couple of weeks anyway, but it's just something that wasn't on my radar. Like a lot of people starting out, you're just playing for fun. So that's what I did, and so it's still something I'm absorbing. It was a fantastic experience. A couple of emails went out maybe a day or two before the actual draft party, which they held at a really cool hotel in downtown in Naples to kick off the week of the U.S. Open, which you were at. And the emails kind of leaned one way or the other. It wasn't real clear to me that I was drafted, but it encouraged me to be there. So luckily, I did get that email, and my parents are only 30 minutes down the road. So it made me say, they've supported and done so much for me as a kid growing up in sports. So I invited them to come join me. So super cool. And everybody's in the room, lots of energy, lots of nervousness. Because even if your email was a little positive, it didn't reveal a lot, and it definitely didn't reveal what team you're going to be on. So I got lucky, and the very first team that went up to announce who they had drafted for their team was the Coachella Valley Scorpions.
That always feels better if you
I
go
tell you
first.
what, the drinks taste much better after you hear your name being called, for sure. So I'm grateful. I can't wait. May 18th, we'll be in Chicago for our first event. So I appreciate that. And it's not all about me, though. We were both down at the U.S. Open, and you really did well.
Yeah, it was my first U.S. Open experience, and it was certainly a party. I mean, everybody you see at tournaments, all in the Mid-Atlantic section, were down there. And just like we talked about in the last episode, this multi-generational impact that pickleball has, it was on full display down at the U.S. Open. So the ability to be playing, and then 2 courts down is a professional match, and then next door you have the juniors that are up and coming. Everybody's in this together, and there's tents, just like a festival. And I think the most cool part is those that we play against typically in our local tournaments, we're all down there, and it becomes this giant team repping Virginia, and we're cheering each other on and going to each other's matches, and that just felt like we were part of something bigger, which was my favorite part of the weekend.
Right, and you played a couple events, right?
Yeah, I played in women's and mixed at the 4-5 split age, and it was a good experience because we were actually playing against people we didn't know. You know, sometimes at the local level, you're playing people you can strategize against beforehand, and you didn't have the opportunity to do that. So you had to do it in the moment, and it was great practice for kind of branching out into different areas to play.
Oh, absolutely. And I can remember being down there, and like you said, we had so many people, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, DC area. And when people were playing at the same time that were in that same kind of larger group, they were, big conference, divide and conquer. We'll go to this match, you go to that match. And so they made sure that everybody was kind of supported in some point in time while they were on the court. So it was pretty awesome. I got to play 4 events. I did get 1 bronze, 1 gold. We did pretty well on the other 2, but like you said, it's new people you're playing against, different skills, different strategies, and you've got to adapt quickly. So, but it was a fantastic, like you said, it's considered the most prestigious tournament, and then it's also considered the biggest pickleball party in the world as well. And it was a zing-zang court. But you know what was also cool about it was whether you are a beginner, advanced, intermediate, pro, or just a spectator. I shouldn't even say just, but a spectator, you couldn't tell who was having more fun. The spectators were having an absolute blast out there. So it certainly is a something everybody should either go see or do, and it's something for everyone, whether you play or don't play.
Right.
So that brings to mind our topic for the day.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Think about what it takes to get ready to compete for the draft, to wait to hear your name in the draft or not. And then our US Open experience, it makes me think about mindset. Court is now in session.
All right.
What do you think about mindset?
It's so huge, and I think the statistic, and I kind of knew this, but I looked it up again to double check, that our mindset is 80 to 90% of what ends up being our performance on the court. And that's across the board. That's a huge statistic. And when we think about how much we train our bodies and the technical, tactical aspects of the game, how often are we really spending working on our mindset and building our toolbox of how to handle certain situations? And I can say for myself, I've spent more time than I used to, but it's probably not as much as I should be. And so that's, with Zen Pickleball, that is my focus. And it really came up through college sports. Being an athlete my whole life, and I didn't learn this word until probably a few years ago. And the word is, I don't know if you've heard of it, the yips.
Oh boy, the yips.
Have you heard of the yips?
We don't like the yips.
I'm glad I have a name for it now, because back then I had no clue what was going on. I was in the middle of my collegiate career playing tennis, and all of a sudden my service toss just started going all over the place. And I didn't know why. My coaches were like, "What are you doing?" And so I just kind of fumbled through that experience because that wasn't a thing that we really coached on back then. And so the yips, just to give you a definition, it's the sudden and unexplained ability to execute a skill that high-level or experienced athletes have done a million times. And so it is very confusing. And it stuck with me to this day. Maybe that's why I love pickleball now. I don't have to toss the ball in the air anymore.
In fact, you can't.
Yeah, so I have the underhand. But all that to say is that it's so important, and I'm glad that it's becoming more of a topic. You see athletes have those mental trainers, and no matter what level you are, kids can be learning this now too. It's finding those tools and what works for you in those moments. So.
Oh, absolutely. I wish it was only a yip this summer.
Yeah.
So we touched very, very lightly on it in our very first session, but or episode. But this last summer, I had 2 back-to-back tournaments, and I guess that's what stings the most. They're back-to-back. But I was up at the Diamond Championships, and I didn't play terrible, but I just knew I was really off, and I didn't understand why. Like you said, we've been training these things. Why am I so off? Then I went to nationals, and that's a big stage, and a lot of money people pay to get out there just to travel, because it's out in the West Coast, Dallas actually. And I felt really bad for my partners because I just wasn't playing well at all. I mean, that's not just self-criticism, that is self-awareness. Yeah, it was not going well. I felt really bad for my partners. And I flew home, and I immediately started saying, you know what, if I don't fix this, if I don't figure out what's happening, my mind is just going to tank, and my game's going to tank. And it could really change the course of my play. Right. So I bit the bullet, and I called Josh Berger, who is a sports psychologist. He does virtual sessions, and I started working with him right after nationals. And it's just been such a tremendous experience. And I certainly, after doing that, can absolutely buy into it being 80 plus, 90 plus % of the game. And, you know, it was really just came down to being aware of the tools and the strategies that you can implement to while on the court, while practicing, while playing, doing recreational play or drilling, things that you can practice. And the brain is a muscle, and you have to train it. I didn't just listen to Josh and go, okay, and hit record on the court, right? It's something you really have to train on. So he gave me quite a few different tools. We'll talk about some of those tools in a minute, but one thing I wanted to say about it, I found that the tool he gave me at first was so powerful, but it didn't take long before the power started kind of draining out, and it wasn't meaning as much. It wasn't making as much of a difference. And so for me, and a tip I'll give to everybody about mindset is have several, you mentioned a toolkit,
right?
Have several options in that toolkit.
Yeah.
Because some days something might resonate more so than others. So yeah, it was a pretty crazy experience. And he taught me a lot, and Zen Pickleball. I mean, just the name of that, your company Zen Pickleball, totally embraces the whole mindset philosophy.
Yeah, it was birthed from the yips and that experience. And even after college, I did explore other things with yoga or meditation and breath work. And it's all tied together, which is finding that balance between doing and thinking. And when we step on the court for a competitive situation, we want to be in that doing mindset and not so much thinking. And that's hard to do. But the goal, like you said, it's progress, not perfection. You're not going to get it right every time or have the right tool every time, but you're just building those resources for yourself so that you can try different things and find yourself in the doing state more and more is the goal. So you had that experience at the US Open for a whole day. So can we capitalize and it goes through the whole weekend next time and those kinds of things. So
yeah, what you're saying is there was one day that actually, for once, I played out of my mind. And I was like, if I could bottle this up, I'd be a billionaire. And I could just hear Josh in my back of my head saying, okay, Krishan, what was different then the other days? You know, and I'm like, so, but here I was having him in my head, in my, you know, his voice in my head as I was reflecting on my play. And you know what? As I told my partner the following day, what's working best for me is to have a completely empty mind. I literally had nothing in my mind, and I realized the word I came up with was autopilot. It's like I was just autopilot, and it's an out-of-body experience, especially compared to the summer. And things just worked, and it just happened, and it was definitely a fantastic experience. So when we talk about resources and tools, actually, before we go there, I just remember we talked maybe last week about a study in basketball. Something about mindset or trying something out.
Right. And they looked at what the self-talk actually was. And I thought it was interesting. So they took a group of basketball players, put them in 2 pools, and they told one group before the next game to only give themselves instructional self-talk. So things like, what's the next play? Who am I passing to? When should I be shooting? Just very tactical information that they were going to be feeding themselves throughout the game. And then the other group was purely motivational self-talk. So giving themselves self-talk that was, I'm prepared for this, I trained and worked hard, and I'm ready, and I'm going to win. So not just positive, but just, I have done the things that I need to do to be here, and now let's go. And they did this several times, and each time the motivational self-talk group outperformed the instructional self-talk group, which I thought was really interesting because I think it's just a reminder that we don't need to remind ourselves of the what so often. And, you know, just remind ourselves that we're doing something cool and we're doing a good job and we're ready.
And at any level, right? You can be a beginner, advanced.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You're not immune to these tools.
No, it goes outside of the court too. I mean, in our jobs, in our lives, we have pressure, and
Sure.
that internal self-talk is going to come out externally somehow.
Hi everyone, Pickle Gals here. We wanted to give a special thank you to our episode 2 sponsor, Friday Pickle. You have probably seen or heard of them on social media. You might have looked at the ad and thought, no way, can't be true, too good to be true. But I can tell you, I got a chance to try these paddles out this past summer. They absolutely live up to all of the marketing, and the price point cannot be beat. These things are carbon fiber. They have extra grit. They are one piece, so the handle doesn't snap. They're thermoformed. All of that means control, power, spin. And you get all of that, 2 paddles, $99. Now they've come out with an upgraded paddle called the Challenger series. These have more carbon fiber, more grit, so more spin, more contact on the ball. They're amazing paddles. You have to try them out. And speaking of trying them out, you have a 99-day happy guarantee, that he calls it. 99 days. Use the paddle. If it doesn't live up to its name and what its claim is, feel free to return the paddle. I don't think you'll need to. 2 paddles, $99. You go to the upgraded paddle called the Challenger series. It's 2 for $159. Check out the reviews. These guys have over 1,000 views, or right about 1,000 views, that are all rated 5-star from beginner to advanced. Check them out. FridayPickle.com. Absolutely. So let's take a deeper dive in it.
Okay.
I brought this with me. It's just very ironic. We had decided on this topic prior to me coming upon this book, but this is Pickleball Mindset. It's by Dayne Gingrich and Jill Martin. Just so you know, Dayne's on the Coachella Valley Scorpions.
Oh.
But that was not intentional when this all happened. I'd already started reading it.
Synchronicities.
So, but at any rate, it's a fantastic book. And again, even though it's Pickleball Mindset, you can apply these tools to anything. But it really has been fascinating. And I'm still not done with it yet. But some of the things in there that are interesting, and some, we've heard them before, but when you really train your brain to think of them, absorb them, accept them, they have different meaning. And so one of the things that comes to mind is a chart in there that said, control what you can control and control what you can't control. Actually, that's backwards, isn't it? You can't control everything is the bottom line, right? I promise I read it. I promise.
Yeah.
But know what you can control and know what you can't. And the reason I bring up the graphic is the graphic has like 8 bullet points of what you can't control.
That's a lot.
And it has 3 that you can't control. So it's things like, you can't control the weather, the sun, the rain, the wind. You can't control the line calls. You can't control your opponents. What was fascinating is you can't even control whether it's going to be a good or bad day for you. So I was like, okay, I'm worn out. What can I control? And the 3 things that he brought up for what you can control are your decisions you make, your preparation, and your reaction. And to your point about tactical versus motivational, none of those are tactical.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it really was amazing. And I guess I'll just share one other concept. I had not heard of this one, but it was pre-acceptance, or it is pre-acceptance. And this is the notion that before going into anything, and I like you bringing up life situations, it doesn't have to be just... there's probably Dayne calling saying you didn't quote that, right? My watch went off. But this pre-acceptance. So whether it's a life situation or on the court, this notion that accept that anything can happen. You may win, you may lose, you may play well, you may not play well. And just accepting that. And I was like, well, why is that important? And it's important because you can't control everything. And if you try to, it just creates stress. And what does stress do, at least on a pickleball court? Makes you tight.
Yep.
And then when you're tight, you get UEs, and those are unforced errors, and you get more and more of those. And then the more you get them, it's almost the more your mind says, I got to try harder. I got to do it better. And then all that's pressure.
Just snowballs from there.
Absolutely. And crash and burn. So that's a pretty cool one that I'm still learning and digesting and that sort of thing. And I know you have a tennis background, so you have a book that you read before?
Yeah, there's been several throughout the years. One of the coaches was Brad Gilbert, who coaches Coco Gauff now. And to your point, his big thing with her and why she's really made big strides is you can win on a B game day. You don't have to always, you're not always going to have your A game. So how can you use your tools and your other game plan to still come out on top? And so I love that concept, and I think it rings true. And then the other one is the inner game of tennis. That's one of my favorites, and it's giving tennis examples, but it really translates to anything. And that's primarily what we were talking about earlier, the self one and self two. So you have these different things going on internally, and that self one is the critic. It's constantly chirping if you really pay attention.
For sure.
And so you're trying to kind of quiet that critical mind so that you can be the doer and just let what you've trained for naturally come out. And that requires trusting yourself, trusting the process. It's a journey and not the destination that we're after here. And so if we can take something away each time and build on that, that's really, I think, the biggest thing.
For sure. And
I think for me personally, it's what's helped me in this whole journey has been having a growth mindset. And if you haven't heard of Carol Dweck, you should look into her work. She does a lot of work on this, and I've tried to embrace that in my life. I try to teach that when I'm teaching other people. And it's really just the ability to be a sponge, to be curious, and to keep collecting tools for that toolbox. I have a lot, but I want more. So
absolutely. And you just reminded me, one of the things, Josh, we talked about a process. So I mentioned, when I tried some of the earlier options, they kind of wore out. The one that has stuck with me and I'm presently using is trust the process. So it's trust the process and trust the ingredients. And it took me a bit, what ingredients? But that's the work. It's the drilling. It's the focus. It's the reading. It's all those things to get you there. And once you're there, like you said, put the tactical aside. The strategic will be there, but the tactical aside. And trust the process. You've put in the work. You've trained it. There's not a new shot you're going to learn or try in this new next match or what have you. So trust the process. Trust the ingredients. I know that you and I have talked about this topic a lot. We could talk about it forever, but I know everybody doesn't have forever. So we certainly appreciate you guys being with us today. We only mentioned a couple of books, a couple of resources.
I just got that book too, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Once
All
you
right.
mentioned it, I was like,
sold
okay,
one.
I gotta,
Fantastic. I'll be curious to hear what you think about it. But again, definitely go out and explore. There's so many resources out there, free resources, paying resources. Don't let your ego get in the way. If you believe that training will get you somewhere, then training your brain is really key. And if you buy into the research, 80-90% of sport competition is the mindset, then why wouldn't you train your brain?
Right. And I think I would love to hear what others are doing or what tools they're using, because that's kind of the beauty of this is if I've learned something that works, I share it with you and vice versa, and we can all kind of collectively fill our toolboxes.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Any comments, any other, for that matter, even just topics, but any tools you've tried, research you've come across that's really been effective to you, share it on social media, our social media, Facebook page, the Pickle Gals. You can email it and we'll share it as well. That would be contact@thepicklegals.com. So love to hear from you. We're in the journey all together, so we can learn from each other as well. So thanks again. Please like, please share, rate it. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And with that, court is adjourned.